What's happening, people? So when I first started this channel, I wanted it to be a self-improvement channel. I've always had a passion for self-improvement. I've always had a passion for thinking about ways to be better throughout life and being better in life. And that passion kind of started when I was when I first entered my 20s. Um, it became something that I was highly focused on, watching a lot of different content creators, reading a lot of different books within the self improvement space. Those are about the only books that I even read in general. Um, and I felt like that was kind of just what I wanted the niche to be. But I'm not gonna lie, like at a certain point in time, it comes to like a certain limit to like what you can really talk about, and there's so many people that talk about those things that it gets to become like, is that really the only thing I want to talk about? There's a lot of things I can even talk about in general. And I really got to thinking about it, and to be honest, like being in your 20s is like a self-improvement journey in itself. Like for those people that watch those videos that are in their 20s or even older, like don't you feel like you've had to find a rediscovery of who you are post college, or if you didn't even go to college, you kind of had to like really think for yourself, like who do I want to be in this world, like who do I want to be in this life, like what is my identity without school, what is my identity without this group of people that I used to hang around, what is my identity now that I just moved to this new city, what is this my identity now that I'm not dating this person anymore. I feel like a lot of relationships end as you get into your 20s because they were child relationships for when you were in your teens that you sort of outgrown. Maybe you weren't taking it. Maybe one of the parties wasn't taking it as seriously as the other. But there's a lot of different change that comes about into your 20s. That's why they call it the defining. They can call it the defining decade. So I might just go ahead and talk about anything on this channel, anything that comes to mind now that I think about. I think a lot of people can relate to going through certain different things, like the different hobbies that you go through, certain dating dynamics that you discover, certain dating stories and dating tips that you might have learned, like, you know, finding out that you really enjoy doing this, or like, what are our thoughts on this? This is the year where a new presidential election is coming up, and maybe 5 years ago you wouldn't have cared, but you probably care now. Or if you're like me, you probably choose not to indulge in things like that as much. Still, I remember 5 years ago telling myself, I probably was gonna take it a lot more seriously. Being an adult, being a working man, I have a lot more that I want to focus on, and I want to make sure that I'm well-rounded adult, and understanding politics and being into politics is important. Well, I've really changed. 20s is a time of change where you might discover that who you really were when you were 15, 11, or 12 isn't that much different than now, but you can just build upon it. What passions do you have outside of work? Like, what are the certain things that you want to do? The types of different people that you meet, workplace banter, like what it's like being friends with coworkers and such. I'm kind of just throwing out examples of a lot of different things that I feel like I've wanted to talk about. I feel like a lot of people can relate to things in your 20s that you can even relate to teenagers. And for the teenagers that might even be watching this, they might even think to themselves like, what are your 20s like? Like, it seems like it's a scary experience. And I'm not going to lie, like, sometimes it is a little bit scary when you have a full-time job and you're wondering, like, at any point in time you could get fired, or what if it's something that you're not happy with, that you really don't want to do? How much longer do you want to be working in this field or at this company, and just doing this thing every single day? It'd be like that. There are things that teenagers can think about that a lot of us in our 20s wish that we thought about before we entered these jobs. But all we wanted to do was go to college and party. But all we wanted to do was just not worry about having a job when we were 18, 19, 20. This is true. You know, I've been talking with friends of mine about an idea of like starting a podcast and doing things up, another interest, another hobby that I've been thinking about going into. I mean, it could be cool. Sometimes I just like to just ramble about random stuff. I was on the phone with a friend the other day for about 4 hours, and honestly, could I remember what we were talking about? If I recorded it with the camera, I probably would remember, but I actually do not. It's crazy. So I made this video to say this, like, your 20s has such an interesting dynamic to it, has such an interesting perspective that I think it's worth being shared. Like, vlogging about what your day-to-day work life is like, talking about certain things you go through and you experience, and what that's like and how that has affected your life, and a lot of people can relate to that. So, as somebody that's diving into a content creator space, I hope that you guys find value in hearing my perspective on certain things. Maybe you relate to it, maybe you do not. Maybe you think it's funny, maybe you think it's boring, maybe you think it's cool, maybe you think it's like relatable as heck. But I think that's something that I might start transitioning into. Talking more about what's going on in the day-to-day. Because a lot of people in their 20s don't realize that they want to pick up finding their purpose and finding what they want to do in their life, and actually discovering who they really are and being who they want to be with no inhibition, with no people judging them, and feeling free to say and act as you wholeheartedly are. So that's the video for today. Thank you guys for listening. If you made it this far into the video, please be sure to like the video. Comment down below if you got a comment. And I'll get back with you guys another time. Peace and love.